My beloved child, stop for a moment and listen carefully, because there is a reason these words found you at this exact moment. Something has been moving quietly behind the scenes, something connected to your family, your history, your name, and something that was placed aside long before you knew you would ever need it. You may have thought a certain chapter of your life was completely finished. You may have believed that an old family matter had disappeared into the past, that certain promises were forgotten, that certain conversations would never be completed, and that whatever belonged to you had already slipped beyond your reach. But stay with me. Don't look away now. What comes next changes everything. Imagine receiving an envelope that you were never expecting, an envelope carrying a name you recognize immediately, a name belonging to someone who can no longer sit across from you and explain why they sent it. Imagine holding that letter in your hands and realizing that the message inside was written before you knew it existed. This is where the story begins. Not with noise. Not with chaos. But with a quiet delivery, a sealed envelope, an unfamiliar signature, and one sentence that makes your heart pause. This was meant to reach you. Stay with me, because the mystery is not simply about money, property, documents, or something valuable that may have been placed in your name. The deeper mystery is why the truth was kept from you for so long. There are moments in life when something hidden suddenly rises into the light, and the timing feels almost impossible. You may have experienced strange reminders lately, an old family name appearing unexpectedly, a memory returning after years, a dream involving a house you have not seen in a long time, an unfamiliar symbol appearing repeatedly, or an intense feeling that something unfinished is approaching you. You may have dismissed these things as coincidence. But in this fictional spiritual narration, these symbols represent a deeper theme. What is meant to be revealed cannot remain concealed forever. Your answer is closer than you think. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you inside the story, and the most surprising part may not be what the letter contains, but what the sender knew about you before you ever knew the truth about yourself. Picture the scene. The envelope arrives without warning. It may have passed through several hands before reaching you. The handwriting is older, careful, almost deliberate, as though every letter was written with the understanding that one day you would be the person reading it. There is no dramatic announcement. No explanation. Just your name. Your full name. And underneath it, perhaps a phrase that immediately makes you remember someone from your past. Someone who once watched you quietly. Someone who may not have said much. Someone whose silence you misunderstood. Someone who knew more about your family story than they ever revealed. Stay with me, because this is where the emotional twist begins. You may have spent years wondering why that person behaved the way they did. Why they seemed distant. Why they avoided certain conversations. Why they changed the subject whenever inheritance, family property, old documents, or forgotten promises were mentioned. You may have thought they were simply being secretive. But what if their silence had another purpose? What if they were waiting for the right moment? What if they knew that telling you too early would have changed the way you lived your life? Don't look away now, because the symbolic message here is powerful. Sometimes what belongs to your future is protected by silence until you are strong enough to receive the truth without allowing the truth to control you. And that is why this letter matters. Not because a piece of paper can magically change your destiny, but because a letter can reveal what people deliberately left unsaid. It can connect names, dates, memories, signatures, places, and promises. It can take a family story that seemed fragmented and suddenly place the missing piece directly in front of you. Stay with me. The letter is not finished yet. There is another detail. At the bottom of the page, beneath the main message, there is something written separately. A short line. A personal instruction. Something that suggests the sender expected you to have questions. Something that makes you realize they did not simply want you to receive an inheritance. They wanted you to understand why it was connected to you. This is where the story becomes emotional, because perhaps the real inheritance was never only an asset. Perhaps it was a truth. Perhaps it was an apology that was never spoken aloud. Perhaps it was a promise made decades earlier. Perhaps it was a record of sacrifice. Perhaps it was proof that someone believed in you when you had no idea they were watching from a distance. What comes next changes everything. Stay with me. Don't look away now, because the second part of this mystery begins with a name you may recognize but a story you may never have heard. The person associated with the letter is no longer alive, yet the message carries the weight of someone who expected the future to arrive exactly where you are standing now. Think about how powerful that idea feels. A person cannot walk into your room and explain themselves. They cannot call you. They cannot correct a misunderstanding. They cannot answer every question you have carried for years. So they left something behind. Words. A document. A record. A signature. Something that could speak when they could not. Stay with me. Your answer is closer than you think. In the fictional spiritual symbolism of this story, Archangel Michael represents courage, clarity, protection, and the strength to face truth without being overwhelmed by it. The blue light often associated with Michael becomes a symbol here, not a prediction, not a guarantee, but a reminder that clarity can arrive after a long season of uncertainty. Imagine that blue light falling across the envelope as you open it. The first page contains formal language, names, dates, and references to something established years ago. You begin reading quickly, then slowly, because one particular phrase catches your attention. It says that a portion of something was intentionally preserved for a future family member. You continue reading. Your hands become still. The name appears again. Yours. Not someone else's. Yours. Stay with me. Don't skip. Because now you begin to understand that the person who sent the letter may have been preparing for a moment they knew they would never personally witness. And that realization carries an emotional weight far greater than the value of any inheritance. What if someone spent years protecting something because they believed you would eventually need to know about it? What if they watched your life from a distance and saw struggles you never realized they noticed? What if they remembered a promise made to your parent, grandparent, or another member of your family? What if the letter is the missing bridge between your present life and a family decision made long before you were ready to understand it? Stay with me. The story is only opening. You notice that the letter contains a reference to a location. A house. A piece of land. A storage place. An account. A box. A file. Something connected to the past. But there is one strange detail. The location is not described in the way you expected. Instead of giving everything away, the writer uses a phrase that sounds almost personal. A phrase only someone familiar with your family would understand. You read it again. Then again. And suddenly you remember something from childhood. A sentence someone once told you. Maybe it was something simple like, "One day you will understand." Maybe you laughed when you heard it. Maybe you forgot it completely. But now that sentence returns with startling clarity. This is where the story begins to connect. The letter was not created to frighten you. It was created to complete something unfinished. And perhaps that is the emotional revelation your heart has been waiting for. You were not forgotten. You were remembered. Stay with me. Don't look away now. There is another page. This page is different. The handwriting changes slightly, as though the writer became more emotional while writing it. The formal language disappears. What remains is personal. The writer addresses you directly. They describe something they admired about you. They mention a quality you may have never realized others noticed. They speak about your ability to keep going when circumstances were difficult. They mention your heart, your patience, your resilience. Then comes the line that makes everything stop. I knew you would understand when the time came. What time? Why now? Why did they choose this moment? Those questions begin racing through your mind. And then you see the date. The date tells you that this letter was prepared long before it arrived. That means the person who wrote it could not have known exactly what your life would look like today, yet somehow their words seem connected to the season you are currently living through. This is the mystery. Not supernatural proof. Not a promise that a particular event must happen. But the extraordinary emotional experience of discovering that someone from your past left behind words that suddenly speak directly to your present. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the letter contains one final instruction, and that instruction changes the entire direction of the story. It says that before anything is accepted, transferred, or claimed, you must first find something that was deliberately kept separate from the main documents. Something small. Something ordinary. Something that most people would overlook. The writer knew it would be overlooked. They even explained why. And that is where the mystery deepens. You begin searching through old records, photographs, boxes, family papers, and memories. You discover a photograph you have seen before but never studied carefully. There is a person standing in the background. You never noticed them. You enlarge the image. You look closer. And beside that person is an object. The same object mentioned indirectly in the letter. Your heart starts beating faster, not because you know what it means, but because you suddenly realize the letter was designed like a trail of clues. One clue leading to another. One memory unlocking another. One forgotten detail pointing towards something that was deliberately preserved. Stay with me. Don't skip. The person who sent the letter may have known that you would eventually reach this exact moment, standing between what you thought you knew and what you are about to discover. And then the emotional truth arrives. Perhaps they did not want you to receive something merely because of your family name. They wanted you to know the story behind it. They wanted you to understand the sacrifices, the decisions, the misunderstandings, and the choices that came before you. The inheritance becomes a symbol of continuity. Something passed forward not simply as wealth, but as responsibility, memory, and truth. What comes next changes everything. Stay with me, because the final page of the letter contains the sentence that explains why it was sealed for so long. You turn the page slowly. There is only a small paragraph. No complicated language. No dramatic declaration. Just a confession. The writer explains that there was a time when they could have told your family everything, but circumstances prevented them from doing so. They admit that some choices were made out of fear of causing division. They admit that certain truths were kept quiet because they believed silence would protect the family. But then they realized something: silence does not erase truth. It only delays the moment when truth must be understood. And now, years later, the letter has reached you. Don't look away now. This is where the story begins to touch something deeper. How many times have you wondered why certain doors never opened? Why certain opportunities disappeared? Why certain people walked away without explanation? Why your family seemed to have missing pieces that nobody wanted to discuss? Sometimes the human mind tries to create answers when it does not have enough information. We fill gaps with assumptions. We build stories from fragments. But a document can change the picture. One sentence can challenge years of misunderstanding. One name can connect two branches of a family story. One forgotten record can reveal that something you thought was lost was actually being preserved. Stay with me. Your answer is closer than you think. The letter tells you not to rush. It tells you not to react emotionally. It tells you to read everything carefully and allow the truth to reveal itself one piece at a time. That instruction is important because the most powerful revelation may not be the amount connected to the inheritance. It may be the reason your name appears at all. And then you see it. A second name. A name from your family history. A name you have heard whispered but never fully understood. Beside it is a note indicating that this person made a decision years ago that directly affected your future. Suddenly, the letter feels less like a financial document and more like a final conversation across time. A conversation that was postponed for years but never completely abandoned. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person who wrote it may have known that you would eventually become curious enough to search. They may have known that your life would eventually bring you to a point where you would ask questions you once avoided. They may have understood that certain answers cannot be forced. They have to arrive when the heart is ready to receive them. And that is the symbolic lesson represented by Archangel Michael in this fictional narration. Courage does not always mean fighting. Sometimes courage means opening the envelope. Sometimes courage means reading the page you were afraid to read. Sometimes courage means admitting that the family story you inherited may not be the complete story. Sometimes courage means allowing a new truth to exist without letting it erase the love you once had for the people involved. Stay with me. Don't skip. Because now you reach the final line, and the final line is not what you expected. It does not say, "This belongs to you." It says something much more profound: you deserve to know why it was kept for you. Read that again in your mind. You deserve to know why it was kept for you. That sentence changes the meaning of everything. It tells you that the inheritance is not simply about receiving. It is about understanding. It is about knowing what came before you so that you can decide what comes next. It is about breaking the cycle of confusion without carrying bitterness forward. It is about turning an old family secret into a source of clarity. Stay with me. Don't look away now. The envelope may have arrived because a process finally reached its next stage, because a document was discovered, because someone responsible for handling old records finally located the right recipient, or because a family matter that had remained unresolved was finally brought into the open. Whatever the practical explanation, the emotional meaning remains powerful. Something once hidden is now asking to be seen. And maybe that is why you felt drawn to this narration. Not because you are guaranteed a specific inheritance. Not because a supernatural force can promise you a particular outcome. But because stories like this awaken a question inside you: what if there are parts of my own history I have never been told? What if there are memories I dismissed that deserve another look? What if the future becomes clearer when I finally understand the past? Stay with me. This is where the story becomes personal. Think about the person who wrote that letter. They are no longer here to explain themselves. Yet their words remain. Their handwriting remains. Their intention remains. And perhaps the most emotional realization is that people sometimes leave pieces of themselves behind without knowing exactly who will find them or when. A letter can outlive a conversation. A photograph can outlive a voice. A promise can survive decades of silence. And a truth can wait patiently until the right person is ready to hear it. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The envelope closes, but the story does not. Because somewhere inside those pages is a direction. A clue. A name. A place. A missing piece. And as you prepare to follow it, you realize one final thing: the inheritance may have been waiting for your hands, but the truth was waiting for your heart. Stay with me. Don't look away now. What comes next changes everything. The next clue is closer than you think, and once you recognize what the sender deliberately left behind, you may finally understand why this letter had to reach you, and why, after all these years, the past has suddenly found its way back to your door.